plenary of this very first international conference on equitable education, all for education. So for today, we have 4 representatives from the organizing partners join us in this very special plenary, and this plenary is called Way Forward, a message of hope and engagement on equitable education. And during the last 2 days, you have heard, or I'm sure many of you have joined us since yesterday from the opening, and we're very happy to inform the participant at home that today the top hit is 2,500 views from 79 countries all over the world. Very good. So it's a record-breaking, very first international, and we're able to get the viewer like this. It's very remarkable, and I would say it's a very gutsy thing to do for us. So, but what have we done so far in terms of our international conference that we have come together, and how do we go from here? And for this session is intended to have key organizing partners to convey the message and to tell us what are their hope and how their organization will engage in equitable education. I would like to first start introducing Kun Duriya Amata Viwat. Kun Duriya she wears several important hats. Kun Duriya is the Secretary General of the Thai National Commission for UNESCO, and at the same time she is also the Deputy Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Education. So Kun Duriya, may I invite you to the podium to share with us what have we received as the key message of this international conference.
Well, first I would like to congratulate the organizer for such 1,000 views online. The international conference like this. And that is also my privilege to be here standing in front of all of you and be part of this significant forum where noble scholars, eminent civil societies, and active alliance in education have been sharing valuable experiences in terms of innovative solutions, best practices, and lessons learned in promoting equitable education. So let me start by bringing all of you back to yesterday from the beginning of the conference. So I would like to share with all of you some essential substances of what we have been discussed and shared during the 2-day conference. At the beginning, I think all of you have also witnessed that we received a gracious honor of Her Royal Highness Princess Mahachakri Sirindorn to deliver special lecture on 40 years of promoting equity in education and improving quality of life for the disadvantaged children and youth. The insightful presentation of Her Royal Highness has indicated that she has been involving in many educational development projects started in 1990. It also paved us the royal activities and royal projects. Many of them contribute to the development of education, and not only in Thailand, but also expand to some neighboring countries. And later we heard from the presentation of 2 global funds, namely Education Cannot Wait and Global Partnership for Education. and they presented good models for future work that could be some example for the Equitable Education Fund. And the two global funds shared lessons learned, particularly challenges during the pandemic of COVID-19. We have witnessed progress in access to education during the past 30 years. However, there are many challenges that we still have to address and tackle. Before the pandemic of COVID-19, around 250 million children were not able to read and write, and around 200 million young people leave school without necessary skills that could help them earn their livings. The discussion on session 1, let me bring you to some highlights of the session 1, which is the equitable education and COVID-19. It is obvious that many speakers agree that the pandemic of virus corona is an unprecedented challenge that has had a high impact on education. And because of the pandemic, they believe that it might be likely that more children could be pushed out of education system. The pandemic causes 1.6 billion children to stay home for several months since February, and affects around 63 due to the pandemic will carry high social and economic costs for people across communities. The impact is particularly severe among most vulnerable and marginalized children and families. School closures due to COVID-19, of course, save lives of students and teachers, as well as those who work in education area. However, at the same time, it also widens education disparity. The pandemic is a trigger for us, therefore, as educators, to revisit and redefine innovative ways to overcome not only the challenges on access to quality education, but also how to enhance inclusive education and ensure that no one will be left behind. When schools are closed, learning was interrupted, of course, and deprived opportunities of youth for growth and development. And mostly this will impact among the disadvantaged, because many of them experience poor nutrition, because most of them rely on school lunch program, and because they don't go to school, some of the kids don't have the good nutrition because they don't have good lunch. Changing from classroom-based learning to home-based learning has increased high demand for digital learning. When parents and teachers are not ready and well prepared. Infrastructure is also an obstacle for digital learning, where those who live in big cities easily access to digital learning, while families in the rural areas have difficulty in access to the infrastructure that could enable them to access digital learning. Some teachers have been well trained to use advanced technologies, while some parents have limited capability to facilitate the learning of their children. Moreover, the learning materials for distance learning have not been well prepared and not adequate for the students to use. As for Thailand, it is fortunate for us that during the pandemic, it was the school vacation, and the reschedule of the opening of the school from mid of May to the 1st of July could enable us to have at least 1 month and 1.5 months to prepare for everything. During this period, we could train our teachers to be familiarized with the technologies for distance learning, develop adequate materials, and be prepared with the normal approach for education. The Ministry of Education has also worked with other agencies, both public and private sectors, to prepare necessary equipments for families to be ready for distance learning. Now I would like to move to what we highlight in session 2. Some practices related to the promotion of equitable education were discussed. Some countries have clear legislation that right to education is the basic right to ensure accessibility to education for everyone. Many speakers share common views that even though equitable education is not legalized, there are some good practices among the speakers showing that we can push forward equitable education in our society without legalized law. In many cases, equitable education is the heart of education reform as well as in Thailand, particularly when it comes to the vulnerable groups. It shows that strong leadership at school level could revitalize the engagement of teachers, parents, as well as the communities to mobilize collaboration in inclusive education. School leadership is also one of the key factors to support wider equitable education in the communities. Different countries have different methods that would suitably respond to their own context of equitable education. The highlight of investment in education is one of the key issues that we discussed a lot during this conference. We have always confirmed that investment in education is the most effective way in improving labor forces and could help elevate national economic growth. Innovative financing in education, therefore, is to raise additional funds to education investment and shows maximized use of the budget. As Kun Ichiro just mentioned during the previous session, our speakers share some practices that could be effective ways of using the education budget to promote equitable education. The conditional cash transfer program is one of the most popular interventions in many countries to help poor families to return to school and reduce the number of out-of-school children and youth. Some incentives for education investment is also encouraged as a model to commit private sectors to contribute to equitable education. Partnership is another key issue that made all of us meet in this conference. This is a good example. It is a global trend to focus on partnership, and it is one of the Sustainable Development Goals, Goal 17, where we believe that this goal is a complementary point to other 16 Sustainable Development Goals. Partnership between sectors and networks is a critical and demands for inclusive and equitable education for all. One of the success factors to promote equitable education is to engage and build partnerships between public and private sectors. Many speakers highlight the necessity of public-private partnership at all levels because it is almost impossible, especially in remote and challenging contexts. The world is moving so fast, and public sector alone cannot keep pace with emerging challenges, particularly in terms of the advancement of technologies. Private sector-driven programs such as the work of Disrupt Technology Venture supports the idea that social entrepreneurship, technologies, and innovation can play a key role in solving social and education problems.